every hospital will automatically audit. Good God. Blah, 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 blah. Many groups will automatically audit VIP patients.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. Today, we're going to dive into the access log audits. So this is going to be another one of your deep dives. Get your scuba gear on, get ready.
Oh, no. Not scuba, just snorkeling.
Yeah, okay. We'll do that. So for the new listeners, my name's David Sims. I'm with HIPAA for MSPs, and Donna Grindle is with us. She's with Carden Compliance. How's it going today?
It's going fantastic, David.
Awesome.
Even though, it's a scary day that we're recording this. So.
I know. It's Friday the 13th as we record this.
I know. Can't joke about it. Something will fall off me.
Well, see, here's the thing though with me. None of that works on me because I was born on Friday the 13th.
Were you?
Yeah, I was.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
That
explains so much.
Yeah, I was born. 13 is actually my lucky number. Interestingly enough, my sister was born on the 13th. My first marriage was on the 13th. So, yeah, lots of 13th stuff's going on.
Yeah, my mother and my brother are both the 13th.
Yeah, see? But yeah, I had the fortune to be born on Friday the 13th.
Well, we are fortunate to have your protections over this podcast today because
absolutely,
it's one of those ones where everybody's like, nah, and they shut down.
Yeah, and a lot of times people don't understand they need to do this. And there's probably some arguments about it. I'm sure we'll probably get into the way people view this because when you start talking about access log audits, what is that? And what am I supposed to do with it? And I think what most people probably do is just take it and file it away.
Yeah. What? Never mind.
Yeah, but actually the regulations state a little differently than that. We actually have to do some stuff with it.
Yeah, got to do some stuff. And like always, when I'm having to work on something, all of our topics we record directly relate to a bunch of questions or scenarios that come in. And, it's really odd how they all happen at the same time. And so you're dealing with it, or it's a project I'm working on or a presentation I'm giving. Something is going to trigger me to put together these notes. And right now, I'm working on the plans for a symposium.
Oh, well, what instrument will you be playing?
Hey now, don't be messing with me. I can play instruments. Believe it or not, I can. I can play the flute, the oboe, the alto saxophone. I played them all in high school.
Oh, interesting.
I know, really?
I was thinking it was the kazoo or something.
Hey. Now, what do you play? Never mind. Don't say it. Don't tell me what instrument you play. Just, we're keeping it clean.
I was going to keep it clean. I was in the band.
Uh-oh.
I can play several instruments. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Mm-hmm. I can play the trombone, believe it or not. I can play rhythm guitar. I play at the piano. There's a few other things. I can play trumpet a little bit. Mostly I can't. I've got to the point now where I can't read the music like I used to.
Yeah,
because it's been a couple of years since I've been out of school.
Yeah, I have that same problem.
But yeah, I can play by ear pretty much. And
well, see, we learned something new about each other, and everyone else gets to learn it too. So let's make some music, David, about audit logs. And so if you're interested in my symposium, we're doing it in conjunction with our friends at Sphere Inc., which we interviewed Ray a long time ago. Seems like yesterday, but it was a long time ago. And they're doing some stuff with us while they happen to be in town. And they wanted to call it a symposium. And so I looked it up. Why would we call it a symposium other than a seminar? Do you know?
Why would you?
I was fine with it. After I read the
no
first
idea.
sentence, I was fine with it. I didn't take it any further.
I just figured it just sounds cool.
That's what kind of they went with. But I, of course, looked it up and
It's a drinking party.
yes,
That's what
thank
it
you.
is.
You did the same thing. See? As soon as I saw that, I'm like, I'm good with it. We can go with it. So the symposium is May 26th in the Perimeter Mall area at the Hyatt at Villa Christina. If you're interested, reach out on the contact page. It's from 8:30 to 10:30, and we have a limited number of free passes. So if you're going to be in the Atlanta area on May the 26th, let us know. We can get you in. If you don't mess around, try calling me on the last day like David would. Hey, sister, hook me up.
I'm on the way down.
Yeah.
Get me in.
So we have the symposium. Plus, we've recently had some interesting conversations in some of our assessments because we had let's just say that someone we were talking to that has an EMR product said, when we talked about, do you audit the logs? Because it says to do that in HIPAA. And they said, well, we didn't turn that on. I guess it uses up too much space. So, yes, we have the ability to do it, but we don't do it. And, it goes a long way because this is a common confusion when we talk about audit logs because you talk to the IT people, what do they think about? This is where you
audit logs?
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the time it's, auditing the security logs that come through their remote monitoring and management platform.
Yeah, the firewall logs, the events, serious events, critical events, all of those kind of things that happen under the covers, so to speak, they're being logged like crazy. And unfortunately, there's so many of them. There's so many entries because you think about the activity that you do on your computer, and that doesn't even remotely touch how much activity is really happening behind the scenes on your computer. So you can imagine what some of these firewall logs look like. People freak out if you ever actually show them how bad their network is being attacked.
Yeah. I had to put a device into a client. It's been a couple of years ago, but it's one of these ones where you walk in and you make a comment like, do you have anything protecting your network? And they're like, well, why would anybody want to be getting in my network? And so I said, well, let me put this device in if you don't mind, and it'll show us if you're having any kind of activity. So I put it in, and sure enough, it was, basically just logging attempts is what it was doing. And he was getting as much as 10,000 a day of just
Scans.
random attempts. Yeah, scans, port scans, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, and when I say attacks, that's a little bit. People are constantly probing to see if they can get in, and then if they find something interesting they think that they can use, then they start an attack. So the constant probes. And did you show them where those probes were coming from?
I didn't have to go that far, even though it was pretty much, okay, you sold me. Let's get some stuff in here.
Gonna need that.
Yeah, but I mean, if I were to track them all back, and I mean, they're coming from, Russia and stuff like that. They're not coming from down the street.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Croatia. It's coming. Those Croatians are awful.
Yo, Bo. But those are the ones that most people think about, and they're very complicated and they're complex. And so much so that there are tools designed specifically for evaluating all those logs. And there's tons of them. And there's some that for smaller environments have some low cost options or, even the free version of some stuff. But they're called SIEM.
Right.
SIEM. SIM. I don't know. Look what happens. We have to have an acronym and we have to call it something. But what it's doing is it's evaluating all of those logs and giving you alerts so that it kind of gets rid of all of the cloud and the smoke and mirrors and gives you, here's what you should worry about. So you have SIM tools that look at the details of all of those logs that are being generated for your firewall and your server events and logins and all of that stuff. And you can certainly do it. I know, we use the RMM has a lot of feeds that pick things up, and then we do manual audits of the firewalls periodically for a lot of clients, just because you to set up these SIEMs, number one, for a long time, they were very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
Very, very expensive. And they're just now starting to really have options. Unless you have a server that you can use to set up to manage this stuff. And there's plenty of organizations that have open source versions and those kind of things. So it can get complicated, and you have to have the equipment and the resources, and a lot of people don't. But it is improving, and there are cloud versions, which helps offload the resources because it's a massive amount of data. So it requires a lot of CPU resources, unlike a lot of other programs.
Right.
Which brings us to the other part of auditing.
Which is?
We're going to flip it and reverse it. We just love that line. We use it all the time. So the other part is auditing the logs of what's actually happening in your applications versus what's happening within your network and your computer systems. So you have two layers that need to be logged and audited, which brings us back around to the folks that said, well, we didn't turn that on. So if you have people that are accessing patient accounts and they are viewing them like they're supposed to, then you're all good, but it's supposed to be logging all of that. And, we hear about the cybersecurity attacks and all of those things that, they were in there for a year before anybody noticed. And, some of these SIEM tools may not have noticed it. I don't know. I can't tell you that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But, we've read times before where the SIEM tools were alerting that things were happening, but nobody was looking.
Oh yeah, there is that issue. If you have the tools telling you and nobody's saying, because I've had that, where people call and they say, well, wow, back in the day when I wrote a lot of claim software, we can't get it. We're not getting any money. We're not getting any money. Something's wrong with your program. And I go back and I was like, well, it's telling you over and over and over that you need to do this, and your claims aren't going to go until you do this. It's told you for a month. And I'll never forget, one guy goes, well, when I was explaining to him, I have evaluated the problem, and your staff was getting these messages and they were pretty much ignoring them. They didn't call anybody. They didn't do anything. They just hit okay. And he was like, that's impressive. So needless to say, you have to look at these things. And you're right. Most of the time it's like it is telling you, but nobody's looking. So then you have the requirement of auditing the logs of the EHR products and the practice management products, the stuff where the data actually is. So long before they even get to it, the SIEM products help you do that. And then there's other products like the Sphere product, and we partner with them just because they have a tool that keeps you from having to have the knowledge to write the rules.
Plus, it drastically reduces the time to look at something.
Oh, well, it's like the SIEM tools. I mean, it's we've got some stuff we're going to cover in the symposium where it shows the number of transactions generated per day by a small office just within the EHR is like 3,000. Because, you think about it, it has to log every single page you're going to. And if there's only like 3 of you in the office and 1 provider or something like that, there are still a lot of pages you're going to, and it's logging it. So take that, and now you've got to audit that to make sure that no one was looking at anything that they shouldn't. So in a small office, a lot of people say, well, we've been here, all of us have worked here for 15 years. Okay, do you ever have any temp people? Do you have any extra providers? Do you ever hire anybody new? Oh, no, we don't do that. And then the next week, we've hired somebody new.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons, no matter how small, and certainly the large ones that make sense. I mean, you can imagine thousands and thousands of these are happening in an hour. And people then, they follow the HIPAA law. And by the way, meaningful use law, which I liked your point when I gave you all of the laws, which we'll put on the notes. But when I gave David the law, what did you say, David, on the meaningful use stuff?
I'm not sure what I said. I think that's where I made a comment about, having a flow chart or following the rabbit down the hole.
Yeah. Because in meaningful use, it says you need to do this to meet the requirements of this. And then on it says you need to meet the requirements of something else.
Yeah. So you're continuously jumping from one section to the next section to the next section.
Yeah. D says you need to meet E. E says you need to meet H and G. It's like, what happened to F? So, needless to say, it's a very detailed what you're supposed to do and evaluate. If you're getting the meaningful use money, you've attested that you're doing this. HIPAA says that you need to implement hardware, software, and or procedural mechanisms, and that would also then be what we talk about doing it manually, to look at systems that contain or use EPHI. So imagine sitting down and reviewing those, David. How do you pick them?
How do you pick? You just grab the top one and then just go.
All right. They're on top of the stack. So
I don't know people that do that.
Well,
so, I mean, just to be honest with you here, I don't know anybody that does that.
Well, yeah, there is that problem. But also, we have people that do try to do it. And so we had one group talk about, like, they grabbed a random sampling of their patient list and set 5 people into reviewing who's been accessing them for the last month or 2 months, whatever. And, how long do you think that's going to take? I mean, if you're going to actually do it, you can't do like 2 patients.
Mm-mm.
So if you're, let's say you're, not even a giant group, but not a tiny one. So you've got 8 providers, let's say 6 providers. You still have a lot of patients there that you've got to evaluate. So you're supposed to be doing it. Don't not do it. There's a big reason to do it, which is what people are finding once they sit down and do it is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So our friends at Sphere, and there are competitors to them, of course. Well, the ones that we have looked at, there's a lot of them that require you to write the rules. And it's like you're saying, allow this, don't allow that. Let me know when this happens. So you're always telling it. And what we liked about Sphere is it's behavioral. So if you're going to look at these tools, make sure you understand when you're looking at them, whether or not it does behavioral analysis or you have to write the rules. Because if you have to write the rules, we were working with someone that was looking into these tools, and they said, well, we did the calculations on the one where you have to write the rules, and we would have to hire somebody to write the rules and maintain it. And, it wasn't a small organization, but it felt like at least half a person would be used just managing the system. And that in itself, we knew that with our client base, resources are at a premium. I mean, the number one thing that they want to hear is, how can I save you time? Mm-hmm. Number 2 is, how can I save you money? And sometimes those switch, but they're always competing for the first concern.
Right.
Patients are the first concern.
Depends on who you ask.
But anyway, so I have some examples on, we've talked before about how, the networks get broken into and the breaches, cybersecurity, all of that. But we haven't talked about a lot about people snooping. And that is, believe it or not, really one of the top concerns of privacy officers in large institutions everywhere. And it's rampant issues. And we talked about the Farrah Fawcett deal.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that it's not just celebrities.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time when I go to the hospital.
Oh, please help me.
But you know, with the cloud-based systems nowadays, I mean, you can sit at home and access the records nowadays.
Right.
So
and that's one of the things that we liked about Sphere is if all of a sudden this person who never accesses records at night starts doing it, it'll send an alert that says, hey, this is out of the normal activity. Is this something you want me to allow one time, allow from now on, or is this an incident that needs to be evaluated? And then you can log it. And even if it was something that was supposed to happen, it allows you to log an incident to show you're actually doing this work and looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling you and you look.
But just to throw a little security thing at you, not at you, but at the listeners, if you have a cloud-based security, especially when you're using, Google Chrome or Firefox or whatever you want to use, and you go to that login page, don't tell it to save your credentials.
Please don't.
I've seen that before where I pull up the login page, and it automatically has somebody's username and password already filled in. And of course, the person's like, I just go ahead and click log in because it's so much faster. I'm like, yeah, but you're not logging in as you. You're logging in as somebody else.
That's why LastPass matters. Or a password manager, rather. You say whatever you use. It's in your mind. I'm not endorsing anybody.
Yeah.
So,
but if LastPass wants to send us some money now,
we can talk. Some examples of what happens when you don't catch them, so to speak. And there's a lot of cases, because you have to remember the difference in using these SIM tools and tools like Sphere, the EHR audit tools. They're looking at everything. And you manually will not be able to look at everything. So if you don't happen to catch something in your random audits, it could just keep going, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there is a huge value to say, yes, we look at everything, and everything is tracked. So, and there's definitely a hard concept here of how do you know someone's looking at their personal, like a friend's record, and they're not supposed to be in there. Well, it has to do with if it's their normal function, it's really hard to notice that. That is very hard, and you have to handle that through your own procedures and training. Because if it would be normal path for them to be in there, but if all of a sudden they hop in there, no, it's going to notice something's out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some examples I got us for different snooping breaches that happened, a variety of them that it was kind of interesting. So the first one was a group of employees that got fired.
A group of employees.
A group, yeah. So they start looking at this, and they're able to see all of a sudden the system log data trail started. They are not going to divulge details of exactly what it is, but they will say their system logs that keep track of which employees are accessing which medical records. They're able to audit that access, and in that, they found that they had a group of employees who, 14 exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. The Caroline, I don't know how it's pronounced, clinic in Roanoke, Virginia. 14 employees accessed high-profile patients' medical records without a legitimate patient care need. So they 86'd them. And their policy, which you're supposed to have a sanction policy, says up to and including termination would be the punishment for it. I don't know if they got rid of all 14, but they certainly got rid of some, but they caught it in their logs, which is, huge. But I mean, we're not talking about one or two patients. We're talking about big numbers, like hundreds of patients that were accessed inappropriately. So the same thing happened at the Sutter Health California Pacific Medical Center. So it discovered that a pharmacist employee had been accessing records. They were fired. It was 844 patients that they had to tell. Mm-hmm.
Did they look at that many? They looked at 844 patient records, or they just had access to that many that they're not sure?
No, they notified them that the pharmacist inappropriately snooping for a whole year.
Oh, good grief.
And again, it was when they did a random EHR audit. So it was going on for a year. So, it was going on for a year. When they first looked at it, they thought, oh, look, they hit 14, and then they figured out how big it was. So, they looked deeper and did a bigger audit to find out that it was really something much bigger than what they did before,
So these are just cases of people who don't have enough work to do.
Or they're using it. In October 2013, in Iowa, Unity Point Health notified 2,000 patients. An employee of the health system's third-party contractor, so a business associate employee, gained unauthorized access to patient records, and the individual was able to access records for nearly 6 months before somebody caught him.
Oh, my goodness.
2,000 patients were involved over, a long period of time. So you look at, is it a year or those kind of things? It starts to add up. Then there's a huge one with Tufts Health Plan. An employee was actually brought under criminal charges and convicted of disclosing patient information in a tax refund scheme. Yeah, we've talked about that. This is just a big reason they steal it. It was 8,700 employee or members of this health plan that were involved after, and the employees go into jail, but 8,700 people snagged, and who knows who all has it, because they can sell the data too. And then, and it's certainly snooping people, they're, believe it or not, in a study, it said they're most likely, everybody worries about them looking at VIPs and all of this. They're most likely to look at friends, families, and coworkers. Not the VIPs, but guess what? Every hospital will automatically audit. Good God. Many groups will automatically audit VIP patients. And that's what they think of. But really and truly, it's not. Huh?
That's what they do to me when I go in.
Whenever you go in, they're all about it. Did you see David Sims was here?
Oh, my God. I know. Just crazy. So many HIPAA violations happen.
Yeah. They call the police is what they do. So, so then here we have a 4-year long, for 4 years. All of these are ones they caught in these random audits. So if they had been auditing full time for everything, then just saying. So for 4 years, they didn't manage to catch this one. It's another one in Southeast Virginia, Riverside Health System. 1,000 patients notified of privacy breach. Good Lord, I'm having a problem. A former employee was getting the Social Security numbers and medical records of 919 patients. It was an LPN, so clinical person. And they're apologizing and how robust their compliance program is and ongoing monitoring in place. So, yes, you had ongoing monitoring, but it was this random thing where you're not looking at all of them all the time. And no, we don't know if the behavioral systems would definitely flag it, but 4 years, you'd think it would pick up something.
Yeah.
And, there's case after case after case of individuals doing it, and it's a one-on-one. It's not just the tools of, it's always 2,000. Often it's a handful that people look at. So, they could be looking at yours, David, just to see it. It's your neighbor wanting to know what's up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me start a rumor that he's spreading something. Something like that. So you never know what these people are doing. And I mean, I've heard a story where they caught an employee snooping in a friend's record and, did the sanction policy, trained her, all this. Then 6 months later caught her snooping in another one, and they bring her in, and she's like, I know you're going to have to fire me, but I just had to know if she was really sick. I'm like,
Okay.
Really? And, it's one of those things. I don't know about you, David, but I mean, there's many a place that I have worked in, and I look up on the shelf and I'm just working, and I'll see they'll bring up a patient or something, or show up in the list, and it's someone I know. I know their name. And I say, let's find another patient. I don't even look I see the name. I say, let's find another patient. And then just forget about I even saw it.
Yeah.
I don't forget because obviously I just told you, but I forget that I saw their names and where I saw them.
Well, I'm the typical male. I'll forget anyway, even if you tell me what it is. Why? Okay.
You're so special.
We have, us men, we have the power of selective memory.
That's right.
As well as selective hearing as well, according to my wife.
Huh?
I'm sorry. Cannot hear you over the TV.
Yeah. You got to make sure I'm listening. That's his story.
That's what I told her what that is. She said, look at me when I talk to you. I said, yeah, but my ears are on the side. I have to turn it towards you.
So we digress.
So anyway, audit logs.
That's right. So, I mean, I think I've tried to define the difference between the two kinds of logs that you have to have and you need to be monitoring in some method, even if it's, a procedural method, but it's very expensive when you try to do it. People spend a day just going through a handful of patients. So it gets quite expensive to do it properly, even if you're only doing random ones. So keep that in mind, that it's not something somebody can do on the fly, to do it properly. And of course, you've got to document that you're doing it, because
If you don't document it, it didn't happen.
thank you. You follow the cue. You usually just mess with me on that.
Just leave you hanging
all the time. It's like that high five that you just walk right on by. So I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. But the audit logs too, and I know you mentioned this early in the episode, but you have to remember that you'll be getting audit logs from different places. Like, for instance, your IT company maybe sending you log files or reports that will be different than the log files and reports that you'll be getting from your EHR. And don't assume your IT company is doing one or the other or both.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we don't, in my IT company, we don't do anything with the audit logs with the EHR because we don't want access to that, really. That's up to them to be able to do, or we can help them to incorporate something like Sphere or whatever else to do that piece. But our tools can't monitor that. So we have to look at what we can monitor, and then we look at that. We do go a step further than just handing clients a mile-long report. We look at those reports as well and document things that they should be concerned about or looked at, or things that we saw and what we're doing to remediate it. But a lot of that is around technical too. It's not just security stuff. So we try to look at what we can, but ultimately, and we've seen this before in some resolutions, ultimately it is the covered entity's responsibility to make sure they're looking at that stuff as well. Don't assume that somebody else is going to look at it and you're good to go. You don't have to pay attention.
Yeah, it's another example of the security rule is not something you can just assume IT takes care of. The whole freaking security rule.
Yeah, you can't offload everything about compliance, even though they try.
Yeah.
Just do it for us. Just do it for us.
So you do have to have that. That is a good way to say you've got IT that needs to be handling certain parts, and you want to get information from them to show that something's happening, that it's being reviewed in some way, that someone's actually looking at it. And then you have to have the person that actually, or the people that actually understand the EHR product, the practice management product, anything that's got PHI in it. You need to have someone dealing with the logs that generates.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter how you go about it, it's something you're supposed to do under both HIPAA and meaningful use. So it's all about protecting it in multiple ways. because privacy is what you're really after there. It's not about security. Security is, is somebody in there that shouldn't even be in there, and only letting people be in there that need to be in there. But once they're in there, what's happening? That's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why you need to look at your logs. Just think of it as the log ride. I used to love the log ride.
The log flume.
Yeah, the flume. Yeah. Did you sit in the front?
Well, we stood at, there's like a bridge that went over it. So you didn't have to get on the ride. You just stood on the bridge. And so when it come down, it would splash you all. So you get more wet off the ride than you would on the ride.
Yeah. If you stood in the right spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember doing that with the kids. They're like, come on, let's stand here.
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Everybody's chafing. Those were the days. Good times. Good times.
Yeah, don't get on that ride first thing when you get there.
Oh, no.
Wait a little later on in the day.
When you're hot. Yeah, just deal with it. And don't think that you don't need a shower when you get home, because that's nasty. All right. Well, I think that's it for the day. We've gone off the rails.
That's it. Technically.
But I am going to use on the blog page, I am going to put one of those log flume pictures. I'm going to find one.
I'm sure it won't be hard. All right. So that's our show for today. And don't forget, head on over to iTunes, leave us a review. I appreciate all those people who have already left reviews. We read them and we appreciate them. And we even laugh at some of them.
That's right. But we're more excited, not about them talking about that we know about HIPAA, which we appreciate that. But we get excited that they say they're entertained.
Yeah, because there's a good bit of them. Yeah, good bit of them. Like, oh, it was entertaining. It was funny. I laughed. And which really, I mean, honestly, if we have to boil it down, it really takes two special people to make that happen because we are dealing with a topic here. It's not exactly fun. So to make it fun to listen to, it's a special talent I have.
Yeah, everybody brings their part, David. Everybody.
Yeah, I know. I'm special. So anyway, make sure to visit us at helpmewithhipaa.com. You can also leave a question right there on our page, and we might feature it in a future podcast episode. So remember, for Donna and myself, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.